in the UK, and he began his career as a computer programmer before moving into leadership development and training profession, where he made a lasting contribution to building skills and strengthening organizations. Over the past 6 years, he has worked as the ONS International Development Team, focusing on supporting national statistic offices, particularly across Africa. In his role, he has delivered over 30 statistical leadership programs and 10 women into leadership initiatives, helping to develop senior leaders, promote gender equality, and enhance institutional effectiveness in official statistics. In recent months, Mr. Curry has been closely engaged with the Center, the Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center, where he has coached and training teams supported the transfer of ANS leadership programs, reinforcing ISTEC mission as a regional center for excellence. Beyond his professional career, he has passionate sports enthusiasm and golfer, as well as published the Right Doors workshop in leadership, management, and sports. And sports have also appeared in the international publication. So this is will be our first presenter, Mr. Carl. And we'll also have the second presentation. The second presentation comes from Dr. Albina Chuo. Dr. Chuo has served as the Statistician General in the Tanzania National Bureau of Statistics for the past 17 years, and as a statistician, senior statistician and principal statistician in the same institution for over 22 years. She holds a PhD in demography, and since inception of the Bureau, back 1947, she was the first woman in Tanzania to lead the Bureau for the period of 17 years. In collaboration with the World Bank and Paris 21, she managed to develop phase 1 of the Tanzanian Statistical Master Plan through its initiative in 2017. Now, according to the World Bank, Statistical Capacity Building Assessment Tanzania was ranked as the second country in sub-Saharan Africa in the production of quality statistical information. May we have a round of applause for her, please. Dr. Chuo has managed to ensure the senior census to be carried out in Tanzania. She coordinated very well the 2012 as well as the 2022 population and housing census, and the last census, the first digital census, its initial results were released just within 45 days after the census enumeration by His Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Now, at the international level, she has served as a former chair of the Regional Advisory Board, RAB, of the Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center, which served 19 countries in Africa for a period of 19 years. She has also served as a former chair of the Statistical Commission for Africa, that is STATCOM, and the UN Economic Commission of the African for 2 terms of 4 years. At the United Nations Division, she has served as a co-chair of Interagency Expert Group for Sustainable Development Goals 2030, responsible for development of UN indicator framework under the UN Secretary General for the period of 4 years. She served as a chair of Global Executive Board on the strategy to improve agricultural and rural statistics based in Rome, headquarters representing the African region. Currently, Dr. Chuo is working as a statistical consultant and also a facilitator at Mlimani Nyerere Julius Leadership School. An active member of the International Statistical Advisory Board on Statistics Ethics based at The Hague, the Netherlands, representing African region. Currently, she's nominated as a co-chair of the Scientific Program Committee, SPC, for the 2027 World Statistics Congress. Now, this is Dr. Chuo, our second presenter. Now, the third presenter will be Prof. Paul Job from South Africa. Now, Prof. Paul is the former Statistical General of the South Africa and head of Statistics South Africa, that is Stat SA. He, as a position he held from 2000 to 2017 after joining the organization in 1982. During his tenure, he led major census and surveys and positioned Stats SA as a leading institution in global statistical development. He has led several influential international roles, including chair of the UN Statistical Commission and co-chair of the Paris 21, founding chair of StatCom in Africa, and chair of the African Symposium for Statistical Development. He also served as the vice of the International Statistical Institute, that's ISI, and was a strong advocate of the Young African Statistics, that is YS movement. Prof. Paul, he was part of the UN Independent Expert Advisory Group on the Data Revolution and continued to serve as an independent accountability panel, advising the UN Secretary General on the health of women, children, and adolescents. He also sits on the steering committee of the Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network, a passionate advocate of civil legislation and vital statistics in Africa. He has received several honors, including the recognition from the University of Ghana and honorary doctorate from the Stellenbosch University in 2015. Since retiring, he continues to consult on census, research, and statistical development across Africa and beyond. So this is Prof. Paul, our third presenter. And the first and the last presenter in this session will be our very own Statistician General, Dr. Amina Msengwa. Dr. Amina is a highly accomplished senior lecturer in the Department of Statistics at the University of Dar es Salaam. She holds a PhD in statistics and has a career spanning over 20 years in the field, with a concentrated focus on health-related statistical modeling for the past decade. Dr. Amina has developed expertise in Bayesian inference, including multivariate analysis, survival models, biostatistics, as well as geostatistical methods. Her research encompasses various health concerns, including malaria, epidemiology, and maternal and child health. She has contributed to a range of impactful research, such as studies on malaria prevalence, mosquito net efficacy, and spatio-temporal mortality modeling in Tanzania. She has also amassed impressive experience in monitoring and evaluation. Notably, she served as a monitoring and evaluation advisor for the National Malaria Control Program through Malaria Control Evaluation Program Africa from 2020 to 2011. Additionally, Dr. Amina has chaired the Bureau of Statistics, that is NBS governing board for the 5 years, and the Administrative Advisory Board of the ISTEC, Administrative Advisory Board of the Legislative Insolvency and Trustees Agency, RITA, around 2 years. She is also a member of the Eastern Africa Section Center Ministerial Advisory Board and the current chairperson of the ISTEC Regional Advisory Board, RAB. Dr. Amina has also contributed her expertise to the preparation of the Tanzanian Vision 2050, leading the data team and demographic modeling to inform the long-term perspective plan. In addition to her academic and professional accomplishments, she has advanced computational skills, including mastery of digital platform for data collection, such as CSPro, ODK, and visualization softwares, including Power BI, and statistical packages like SPSS, Stata, Winbugs, and R. She also well versatile in using geographical information system softwares such as ArcGIS, MapInfo, QGIS for mapping purposes. Now this is Dr. Amina Msengwa, our first presenter, and may we have a round of applause for our presenters before they come. Now, in moving on, we will have our moderator who will take us through all the way from the beginning up to the last. May you allow me to welcome Dr. Kasala. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Kasala will moderate this session, and may I invite him to proceed. Karibu Daktari.
Asante sana. Perhaps before I begin to say what I'm supposed to say in connection with moderation of the panel discussion, let me also congratulate ESTEC, precisely because I served the Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center for 5 years as the dean of students. So I was very happy to hear that now you are 60 years old. So I am very happy also. Kindly accept my congratulations. But not only that, as a trainer, I used to prepare master's students, master degree of official statistics, and I taught the course of National Statistical System. Also, in terms of administration, apart from being the dean of students, I was also a member of the NBS editorial board. I remember the very lively discussions we were having when we were putting on final touches to the newsletters. So I'm also very glad that I enjoyed being there. Currently, I shifted my interests to a different field, but not running away from statistics. I am currently the Director of Human Dignity for the Tanzania Catholic Bishops' Conference. And I can assure you that every time I make reference to the Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center, when they need to have knowledge in statistical training. So do not be surprised, in the near future, you'll be having priests and religious women coming to study there official statistics. My PhD had a bit of official statistics. This was about 15 years ago. I looked at what they call critical management of national statistical development designs of the 3 African countries, that is Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. That was way back in the year 2001 up to 2003. I have very good memories of UBOS, the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, with Professor Kerigera. And when he visited ESTEC, I was still there, and we had very good memories to talk about my PhD. And I applied the knowledge I had to accompany Professor Ngalinda to initially train the newly independent Southern Sudan Republic to establish the National Bureau of Statistics of Southern Sudan. So with that, I can say that I am still, at least at heart, a member of Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center. Hongera sana. kwa miaka 60. If I were asked, what would you advise to the Tanzanian national statistical system that is right from the beginning learners up to the top management, RAB and MAB, I would simply say, mipango bila takwimu, ufukara ndiyo hukumu. I repeat. You should remember this always. Mipango bila takwimu, umaskini ndiyo hukumu. Thank you very much. To start, according to the timetable, I would now invite the first presenter, Mr. Byron Callies, to give us a presentation on his topic. Karibu sana. You're most welcome. Yes, you, please, the other side, yes. Right, thank you.
Good afternoon. Hiya. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor for me to attend this event. So I have too many people to introduce or to talk that I've talked about. So what I'll just say is, may I say, all protocols observed, I mean. There are too many people for me to start mentioning. So I'm Byron Callies. I work for the Office for National Statistics in the International Development Team. And as you saw on my bio, I work a lot in Africa, running leadership training. So today I'm going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes on one of the key issues that all organizations face, not just statistics offices. It's about talent management or talent development. Because basically, one of the key challenges for every organization is to find and keep good employees. In essence, that's the heart of many of the problems with organizations today. It's a large problem for statistics offices. It's a large problem for ESTEC, I would imagine, for McDonald's, for every organization. And I think that national statistics offices need to be thinking a lot harder about this. How do we recruit and retain the talent that we have? I've worked in the Office for National Statistics for 40 years. When I started, recruitment and retaining talent didn't seem very much of a problem. On my first day, I was told, now you're in, you're safe, you've got a job for life. Nowadays, that isn't the case. I think we've seen 20% reductions in staff over the last couple of years. A lot of organizations have changed like that, the statistics offices. So when I first started, it was a different world. There was very little leadership training for anyone. I think I can remember 5 or 6 senior leaders in our office went to London for a week and came back and tried to introduce initiatives which fizzled out in a few weeks. Things have changed a lot. When statisticians started in our organization, they seemed to lock themselves in rooms do the magic, the dark arts of producing statistics, and were never seen again. I talked to one deputy director later on in his career about how he got promoted. He said, when I started, which was 40 years ago, he did, it pretty much echoes what Oliver said about statistics when you start. He said, they put me in a room and gave me a lot of hard sums to do. I did that really well, he said. So then they give me even harder sums to do. I did that really well. So then they gave me 40 people to manage, and I didn't have a clue what to do, because there was no leadership training. It was just expected. If you got promoted, if you did well at something, then you could be a leader. Fortunately, he was one of those that was really good, and he picked it up. But a good many statisticians weren't interested in being leaders, or just weren't particularly good at being leaders, having had no training. So times change, and leadership skills are not the same as statistical skills, as we've worked out. They are different. It's a totally different role. People need to learn that skill as well. Over the past 40 years, that's developed a great deal. Now leadership training, certainly in the UK, is something that starts from the very beginning. Oh, right. Okay, I have a presentation. So this is me talking about the ONS 40 years ago. And this is what it looked like. It looked a bit bleak. It looked like a little bit of a prison to some aspects, but that's where we went. There were a lot of people that worked there. At the moment, there are around 6,500 staff that we have in the statistics office, which is a pretty phenomenal number, especially compared to some of the African countries I work in, where they're talking a few hundred, still trying to produce the same results. So, back to leadership. I talked about the deputy director's progression. And leadership skills are not the same as statistical skills. You have to learn them. It doesn't automatically work that if you're a great statistician, you'll be a great leader. It's a bit like football managers. Not all the great football managers become good football coaches. So it needs a lot of effort, a lot of energy. Nowadays, statisticians are not allowed to sit alone in a room and churn out statistics, especially in the ONS in recent years. What's happened is we get a lot of cross-functional teamwork, where a project will come in and a statistician will be chosen to run that project. Whatever figures it will be, then that will be their job. They'll set up a team of 4 or 5 people in the office from different areas, maybe someone from project management, someone from communication, and they'll work together as a team for a certain period of time, maybe 6 months. So they stand up as a team, and 6 months later, they finish the project and they move on. So the skills of that statistician is a lot different then. They have to be leaders. They have to lead that team. They have to manage that team. They have to do the outputs, the project management. So it's changing the role. The role is changing so dramatically that I feel we need leadership training almost from the beginning. So talent development is perhaps a term we use quite a lot these days. Tend to think of people coming out of universities, this is the talent, and we need to find them, to get them involved in our statistics in the offices before they go and join some of the larger companies maybe. We've had a real challenge over the last 10, 15 years with data scientists, which seem to be the new thing at the moment. So the ONS has a great data science program. So what we've tended to have is people would come in, get trained as data scientists, work for a couple of years, and then move on to larger, more highly paid jobs in London initially, so doing the same type of work for 3 times the money. So we've had to think, how can we start recruiting and retaining people? It's a real challenge. But if you look outside and you look at some of the research going on, it doesn't necessarily appear that people are coming out of university and looking for the money. Research has shown that young professionals tend to want more than just money. They want workplaces that value innovation, career development, challenge, and a work-life balance. So all of those things we can give people. The financial rewards we can't do an awful lot about. But if we can train, develop, motivate people, then that'll help a great deal. Another place that we should start looking is inside. We're not always looking outside to get new talent, to get the best university graduates. We need to start looking inside the organization. And I've got one example of the leadership program we've been doing, and Oliver was instrumental in this program, because I went to one particular national statistics office in Africa to do the leadership training with the top 12 executives. Not one woman in that top 12. So we discussed it, and even I, that is not as observant as anything, I noticed there was a problem. So we talked with the DG, and we were in partnership with UNECA, that Oliver was there supporting, and we worked out, could we run and develop a Women into Leadership program? So with the encouragement of UNECA, with the encouragement of people like Garnet, who worked with me, and the help of the Women into Leadership program in the ONS, we developed a Women into Leadership program that covered a lot of the content that we were using for the leadership program. We also had features that were specifically for women, looking at the particular challenges, why they weren't staying in the organization, why they weren't developing. So we started that, and I think Oliver came to the first running of that course in Nairobi, when we had 2 women from 8 different statistical offices. So we ran the week-long course there, and we've ran it ever since. We've run about 10 of those courses, 30 of the other courses. So it's just an example of seeing the problem and doing something about it, rather than complaining, oh, we'll never keep all our data scientists. It's just trying to take a more proactive process. I think leadership training can be a big part of this talent retention. and a leadership training program that we run, that we advocate, and that we are starting to run and coach people from EastEC to do. It's not only about the skills. It's not only about what you do to be a leader. It's about looking at the whole thing. It's about doing something different. It's about talking to people. I'm sure we'll talk about artificial intelligence, and maybe that will come onto the program. But I think we'd be looking at it more in how do we manage this artificial intelligence? What are the dangers? How can we use the right people? So I think, as people have said before, it will change and the training will change, and I'm sure EastEC will be able to change that leadership program after I've retired next year and into the coming years. Leadership training shouldn't be static. The aim is to recruit and retain more people, which is the big challenge that we have. And I think this can really help a lot. This is the result of the Women into Leadership program we ran when we had all the women from different stats offices. And it was a fantastic course, and one that we managed to look at, change a little bit, but run then for more and more women into leadership. Since that, we've had reports back of some of those women being promoted, some of them getting different areas to work at in their offices, but they all seem particularly thrilled that people took notice of them and did something for them. So the point about the continuous development, it's for this training course. I want to hand it over to EastEC, and I promise I will let go and hand it over, as long as people keep doing the right thing, looking for different options, talking to people, evaluating, and I see you've got an excellent evaluation program, but going back to find out, as we do after each course, 6 months down the line, we go back to the office and say, what worked? Were there things that you did? Is there anything we could do differently? It's not just, we don't just run it once and then the slides are etched in stone somewhere. It changes every time we run it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that brisk presentation on leadership and management. I believe that everybody can agree with me that one of the critical problems in Africa is managing development. We have a lot of development of this, development of that, development and so on. But unfortunately, once we have developed, then we get stuck on how to manage what we have developed. And I think this comes in the necessary skills of leadership. And I presume that Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center have got the point. The point is that once you have professional statisticians, the next step is to make sure that you prepare, you train leaders in the field of statistics. I know that each region in this country has a regional statistical manager, but I think we should go beyond that. So we will discuss more about that when we look at the constraints, at the context, at the processes, as well as the necessary resources to achieve that. Thank you very much, Mr. Kailes. Thanks a lot. May I call upon the next presenter, Dr. Albina Chuo. Karibu sana.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Takwimu hoye. Takwimu hoye. Thank you so much. My presentation is on reflection from the field after working for 39 years in statistical development. So I will share more of my experience in Africa and then come back to Tanzania. Technology now. Come and show me how to do these things. Okay. Let us look at historical evolution of statistical system in Africa, and then we look in Tanzania. What are the evolution that we are currently seeing in Africa and then in Tanzania? And very quickly, I'll talk about the role of ESSEC played over the decades, which I won't talk much because Rector himself and the keynote speaker talk a little bit about that one. And then the lesson learned or lesson gained from the leadership and institutional development in Africa and then in Tanzania. Very quickly, I'll talk about the challenges and the way forward. Okay. We know that strengthening statistical capacity in Africa is very crucial because of improving development outcomes and good governance. Why? During the inception of Agenda 2030 in 2015 September, it was well noted that a well-functioning state means that statistical system is functioning according to the code of conduct. It follows the fundamental principles of official statistics and the other international organizations. Why? Because statistics is about accountability for any state. It's about the results, it's about transparency and everything. So if any functioning state doesn't have a well-functioning national statistical system, then that state is mass. And why I'm saying this? You see, we have our nice African Agenda 2063. My brother Oliver has said that, with a clear vision of the Africa we want. This vision of Africa has 7 aspirations, which need indicators that all of us, we have to produce it within the 54 countries around Africa. So there's no only way we have to ensure statistical capacity in Africa is really strengthened enough according to what we have, so that we provide as much as possible indicators to respond to this agenda that we want to see the 2 young ones, the boys and the girls, which are our tomorrow's Africans, that they needed to enjoy the land of Africa. So this is the fact. During the colonial time, statistical system in Africa have their roots in traditional monitoring and evaluation practices. Because all of us, we were ruled by the colonials, right? So we were following performance tracking system. That's really what was being done here in Africa for the statistical systems. Now, modern statistical system began to shape during the post-colonial era. And when was that? It's when many African countries established national statistical offices. When we had this, then statistical system in Africa started being modernized. We really thank you, the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness in 2005, which emphasized the importance of results-based monitoring and evaluation systems, which leaded to increased adoption in Africa. Because if you want aid from the IMF, World Bank, you need to show the results of really what you want to achieve. So from that declaration, then the rapid development of a statistical system in Africa started very, very quickly. In terms of capacity building, of course, when I'm talking about capacity building, I'm not talking about just training. Capacity building is more broadly. It's about human development. It's about equipment. It's about training and everything that really we need in Africa. So those days, back to 2005, I know there is my seniors that who are sitting here, my strongest brother, Pali Lehola, who has been in the field quite sometimes. So efforts started. ACBF, it was there, and I don't know whether it is still functioning. Our colleague from Zanzibar benefited from the ACBF those days. SADC, Statistical Capacity Strengthening Project, also they were also there. We have SHASA, we have African Chat on Statistics. All this is about how to develop the statistical system in Africa. And the others, many, like African Development Banks, there are those components that deal with the capacity building. The other factor that triggers the development of statistics in Africa is the data-driven decision-making, because there's no way you can't get aid without having this ensure you have data that will inform decision-making. So once the demand was very high, then the recognition of the importance of statistics in informing decision, policy decision planning and research for socio-economic development starts to pick up in African countries. Now let's come back to Tanzania. Okay, we have a nice picture there. We have our first Baba wa Taifa, Mwalimu Nyerere, who is sitting between two I think it's one is I think it's a British. So the evolution of Tanzania's statistical system has the same roots like the other African countries. It's originated from the colonial era. And I remember when you read those books, in 1946, when the census was conducted in Tanzania, was to inform decision-making for the current government under the colonial rule in Tanzania. Early beginnings in 1947 is where now a small department was established, primarily to continue collecting and analyzing statistical data, and the chief statistician by 1946 was a German who was sitting at the Ministry of Finance by 1947. The statistical ordinance was enacted in 1960, not 1960. And it was enacted, but had a flavor of colonialism, kind of. And the head of the department was British. And up to 1970, a Tanzanian was nominated to date. So after the independence in 1961, the statistical system was expanded a little bit. And why it was expanded in 1961? One was to support the national development planning and policy making in our current Tanzania vision, Tanzania Development Vision 2025, which is now going to be concluded this December, and a pick up for the other 2050 Tanzania Development Vision. I can tell you, by that time, the Bureau was a department, still a department, under the Ministry of Planning and Finance. Then the National Bureau of Statistics was now established as a semi-autonomous office on 26 March 1999, and a 2002 Statistics Act that was enacted. And National Bureau of Statistics then started to operate under Ministerial Advisory Board, and by eyes on and hands off, However, coordination of national statistical system that brings together all the producers and the users of official statistics was not yet established. So somewhere, somehow, statistical system of Tanzania by that time was fragmented. Everybody was just producing numbers. Everybody was just like a statistician. Everybody can produce data and shout in the radios, shout in the TV that Tanzania is like this, Tanzania is like that. So in 2015, we fighted to ensure we have a strong statistical system in Tanzania that can produce data, statistical information that will support the government to drive quality decision making. So in 2015 now is where we establish the public autonomous National Bureau of Statistics with a governing board, whereby we manage now to run on our own. However, somewhere, the political interferences of what really we were doing, we were free, we were doing our things. Development partners, they were coming in to put some money for the statistical development and so on. Our journey for modernization really, and I continue to thank you, the government of Tanzania, modernization of a statistical system in Tanzania began 2011-12 when the government of Tanzania, in collaboration with the World Bank, jointly set aside a statistical loan for development of statistics in Tanzania at a tune of $30 million. And the second one that is on, and I'm sure my young sister, Dr. Amina Msengwa, who served as the board chair, and she's very strong, as you can see. She will continue doing that until 2017, and hoping the government will continue putting more funds for another phase of TSMP3, so on and so forth. So through modernization, that the government commitment for putting money for statistical production really supported Tanzania in terms of adopting new technologies in data collection. Thank you, World Bank. Thank you, UNECA, my brother Oliver, for supporting this technology across the Africa during your time when you are sitting as the director under the African Center for Statistics. We had a copy now. This is a computer-assisted personal interview that we use, and now Tanzania is where they are. You see, I've put this picture purposely. Why? Because in Africa, we keep on saying we need a political will. We have to fight for political will and action. This is my lovely President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. She modernized our 2022 population and housing census ever. She put all the money that was required to run the population and housing census. You see, as it has been said, we managed with her support, because it's a president that talk and do. Action, not keep on talking blah blah. She talk and do it. So with that, we managed to conduct our digital census of its own kind in Africa. Within 45 days, we managed to release the initial results, as you can see from there. With her leadership also, all the national surveys, censuses like industrial censuses, and so on, is really being conducted as it is being stipulated under the released calendar that really provide the National Bureau of Statistics to see which survey has to come out, and so on and so forth. And this transformative theme that we are saying, and transformative agenda in Africa, and in terms of gender balance in terms of capacity building, in terms of training. By the time I left office March this year, at least 80% of all statisticians at the National Bureau of Statistics had a master's degree from various universities, including this center. And once again, I hope Dr. Amina, my successor, she will continue doing that. Our move is to ensure all our statisticians in Tanzania and across the Africa, why not, to have the master's degree and eventually have a PhD in statistics. The idea behind is to modernize, statistical system in Africa. Our heads of states enacted African Charter on Statistics, and it says clearly capacity building is very important. Putting enough resources is really very important. In terms of gender, of course, during the colonial time, it was zero. A woman to manage having a degree in statistics or in mathematics, it was not easy, isn't it? So by the time I left office, 30% of the management decision, women are participating. And I think by the time Dr. Amina she will leave in the office, I hope 50-50 it will be attained according to what we are seeing in Africa. Statistical infrastructure, of course, really we managed to come up with National Quality Assurance Framework. I keep on bothering my brother Pali Lehola. Can you share with me the National Quality Assurance Framework for South Africa? But eventually it's there now in our website. If you visit the NBS website, you find there. Code of Conduct for Statisticians is also there. It's just waiting for the signature from the minister, regulations and all this kind. Compendiums, statistical guidelines, all these are now available at our website. Why? Because we need to foster statistical ethics. If you don't foster statistical ethics, then you are in trouble. You will become like US right now, whereby they fire and hire the heads of statisticians because they are not producing the numbers that suit their conducive. But we statisticians, we are professionalism. We have to salute our professions. So all these things are now currently available. And not only in Tanzania, we urge that all these things to be available in African countries, all 54, all these code of conducts and everything, so that we abide to statistical ethics that we are looking for right now in African countries. Physical infrastructure. Oh, you can't imagine. There are still some African statistical offices, they don't have electricity, they don't have computers. So we have now modern statistical offices with modern equipment, computers, networking across all the country, across all the regions in the country. And this, our prayer is to replicate the same thing in all African countries. Now let's talk a little bit about the center as it is celebrating 60 years, what really they did for the African statistical systems and in Tanzania. Very quickly, I don't want to repeat. Capacity building, they have expanded capacity building, providing skills in different areas, sampling and so on. Technical assistance, they're also doing that. Collaboration and the partnership. Thank you, my successor. She has said she will continue with the collaboration and partnership that we were doing those days. And in a nutshell, of course, ESTEC has a lot to do in terms of expanding capacity building to cope up with the growing demand for technologies that we are currently seeing. I don't want to take this one, but I want to share you one story that when ESTEC started to initiate a degree in official statistics and a first degree and second degree in official statistics, when it was presented to our statistical meeting in UN, in fact, you can't imagine. Our colleagues from European countries, they took all these modules. They took modules, and if you look at European statistical system, Masters in Official Statistics is in full swing. But for us, we are still working on it. My brother, Pali Lehola, he will talk about what happened to Syria base in Africa. Because we were just like moving very slow like that. Our colleagues, they took it. So it's like the Masters in Official Statistics, where it originated from here in Eastern Statistical Training Center, it was being taken by Eurostat. It is now all over. So why? I'm saying this why, because it is really very important, because what we want to see is CBET, competence-based. Can we thinking of having a regulatory board that will regulate all the statisticians, just like what Nigeria did? During my era, I was pushing this agenda that those graduates from universities and other centers, probably they could thinking of coming here to take the practical leeway of how to compute the CPIs and everything, despite we have AIs and everything. But my successor, I hope he will take over from there, because by the time I left office, I left a review of the Statistics Act, which I think all these things will be there. Capacity building, what we collaborate with Eastern Statistical Training Center. In terms of improving data quality, I said no way. Somebody from the markets coming to my office, going to collect data, no. He has to undergo a training of how to collect data. Why data collection is very important. Because the slogan of saying everybody can collect data, no. It's like a medical doctor, it's like a lawyer. Can you offer a medicine to a patient without undergo any kind of training? So we work together with Eastern Statistical Training Center to train data collectors across all regions here in Tanzania. And when we initiate that initiative, we managed to improve the quality of data that we were collecting. You can't imagine. By 2017, you know, the statistical capacity building assessment that was conducted by the World Bank, we ranked number 2 in 2017. The first one being my brother, Pali Lehola, being ranking number 1, because South Africa, there's no way we can compare with South Africa, isn't it? They have all these resources, they have everything. Yeah. So the rector said the e-population register software, we worked together with ESTEC. Why? E-population register. Because of high demand of data, real-time data. This really makes us to think, where are we going to get this data? If you look at the routine data system, a lot of challenges, incompleteness from various sectors and so on. So we tried to do that, and we did for 2 regions only, Pwani and Songwe, and then we stopped there, and I hope it will continue under my strong leadership of my young sister. Way down. Okay. Lesson learned from my experience and so on. Change management. Over the past 60 years, as we are celebrating 60 years of the ESTEC, we have seen a lot of achievements. I don't want to repeat this. And why? Because of change management. How many rectors they have passed there at the ESTEC? I think 3 or 4 or 5. So a smooth change management was really acquired. That's why now we are seeing the tirelessness of MAB and RAB. They contributed to all these achievements that we are seeing. Culture, innovation, culture, clarity, climate, systems, all these manage ESTEC to reach where we are currently seen. Challenges, of course, just like other African countries, limited resources. However, the rector and the entire management, they are struggling to find resources to push their strategic plan. But again, they will try. We had a commitment from the guest of honor this morning, and I hope he will continue putting enough money for the center to grow in order to be able to respond to the emerging issues that we are currently seeing in Africa and across the globe. And of course, under the capacity building initiative, I think there is a need of revamping the existing organizations, our Pan-African institutions, including ACBF, EAC module on capacity building, and others, and many. And let us continue tapping opportunities under our ongoing initiative, like Agenda 2030. There are a lot of custodian agencies that they are supporting capacity building and so on and so forth. So the way forward, we need sustainable funding, coordination and collaboration. We have to increase data-driven decision-making and so forth and so on. Now, to conclude my presentation, today we are celebrating 60 years since its inception. You know, Tanzania National Bureau of Statistics has been there for 78 years. 78 years since its inception in 1947. Innovation and technology is growing rapidly. The impact of AI and statistics, a lot has to be done in the training. I will just leave here as a food of thought. And this is my takeaway. With all this emerging technology, do national statistical offices and colleges across Africa will continue existing beyond 2030 when we are going to conclude the Agenda 2030? So this is our food for thought. So let us work hard to ensure we cope with the situation. Dear colleagues, Tanzania will hold his national election on 29th October 2025. Being a senior citizen, please, I urge you, all of us, to join hands, tuende tukachague viongozi tunaowataka, chama tunachokitaka. Nashukuru sana, asante sana. Takwimu hoye! Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Albina Chuo, for a really packed presentation. So packed that I was just asking myself, how could I summarize it in one sort of sentence? And I came out with this. If you listened to her very carefully, you will realize that her presentation passed through 3 phases. The first phase was about historical insights of the development of official statistics in Africa in general through Paris Declaration and Tanzania, through the current professional development insights. And then she looked to the future, what we would call the aspiring statistical foresights in terms of management, leadership, development, technology, and all those results-based development programs. So for that, I think you needed to take time to tease it out and really appreciate the bulk of the information which was in her presentation. Could you pass a clap of hands, please? Clap hands for her. Thank you very much. We move on now to the next presenter, the former Professor Panli Job Lehola. That's is that a Zulu or Soto name? I can't pronounce it. Karibu sana, Professor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think we stand on the protocols that have been elegantly presented throughout the period here. When I was asked to come and talk about ISTAC, I had to dig deep because South Africa doesn't have a relationship with ISTAC outside the relationship of South Africa and Tanzania in its political environment. So I'll talk about that relationship and then embed the role of ISTAC. Excellencies, the South Africa in Tanzania are inseparable. So I themed my presentation as the South Africa in Tanzania. After 33 years, the president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, visited Vicky Nsilo Swai. This is the woman who kept Nelson Mandela's pair of leather boots since 1962. Mandela, on his way abroad in 1995 as president of South Africa, of the Republic of South Africa, collected the boots he left when he paid a visit to the late Vicky and her late husband, then Minister Nsilo Swai. On his way back, Mandela had left his boots in their family. He had left his and the pair of boots that were never collected until when he visited Tanzania as president in 1995. The story of the South Africa in Tanzania has continued, and in particular, that story with the Swais is because 16 years on from when it was inaugurated, the track for Mandela to combat period poverty for the girl child is a climb of Mount Kilimanjaro, and it celebrated its 16th year with the launch of the Trek Mandela Coffee Table Book, which was launched on the 14th of August, 2025. It is at these foothills of Kilimanjaro where Mayor Vicky Nsilo Swai was laid to rest on Tuesday, June 15, 2021, in her hometown, Machabenku in Moshi. The South Africa in Tanzania was memorialized on 17th October 1997 at a banquet held for Mwalimu Julius Nyerere by Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela said about Mwalimu, "It is a great pleasure to share in this occasion honoring you, one of Africa's greatest patriots. It is a humbling experience to recall the contribution that Mwalimu Nyerere has made to the liberation of our continent and to freedom in South Africa. This is the freedom fighter who had Chief Lutuli's appeal and joined Trevor Huddleston in launching the anti-apartheid movement in Britain in 1959. A leader whose decisive intervention at the Commonwealth Conference after the Sharpeville massacre led to the exclusion of apartheid South Africa." Mandela continues and says, "I had the personal privilege of meeting him many years ago. In 1962, when I visited Tanzania seeking help as we embarked on the armed struggle, and this is where the story of the boots starts. Then, as now, I was struck by his lucid thoughts, his burning desire for justice everywhere, and his commitment to Africa's interest," close quote. The South Africa in Tanzania is a rendition about the climb of Kilimanjaro. It is about the struggle for development. On Africa Day, the 25th of May this year, President Mbeki was here in Tanzania to commemorate the Africa Day. This was the first time that the Thabo Mbeki Foundation commemorates this, our Africa Day, outside South Africa. On that occasion, Mbeki said, "Africa's future will not be written in foreign capitals. It must be authored by Africans through our own intellect, innovation, and united resolve." It was precisely because of the South Africa in Tanzania that upon taking position as the Statistician General of South Africa in 2000, I resolved that the next intake to climb the intellectual Kilimanjaro will be a cohort that will enroll at ISTAC. In 2001, the first intake of staff from Statistics South Africa was enrolled at this institution that is 60 years old today. Early in March 2001, I led a team of senior management from Statistics South Africa that included the current Statistician General, Risenga Maluleke, the chairperson of the Statistics Council, Dr. Hilary Southall, who was also my teacher or professor at university, Ms. Yandiswa Mpecheni, Mr. Des Boysen, and Professor Akiki Kaimbara, in search of what Chinua Achebe is no longer it is referred to as the Golden Fleece. I chose not to go to Europe for this Golden Fleece, as many might have expected. I chose to traverse the African continent. And in this regard, I chose the South Africa in Tanzania. I followed on the footsteps of the path of struggle, for it is not in other capitals of the world that the African narrative is going to be written, but it is in Africa itself and by the Africans, as President Mbeki instructed when he visited the South Africa in Tanzania on this year's Africa Day. The results of this commitment have been enormous. One Molefe Mkhase, a student here at ISTAC, then in 2003, would connect with the struggle sites of Morogoro, where from 25th April to 1 May 1969, the African National Congress held its first consultative conference. He would communicate his excitement of the South Africa in Tanzania about the historical Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, SOMAFCO, as an African National Congress institution in Mazimbu, here in Tanzania, that provided education to South African exiles from 1978 to 1992. And the modern Solomon Mahlangu campus of Sokoine University of Agriculture, Solomon Mahlangu School. Soma is the South Africa in Tanzania, and it is named after the iconic young lion who, when sentenced to death by hanging, said to the apartheid judge, "My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. Tell my people that I love them." These were the final words of Solomon Mahlangu before his execution on April 6, 1979, as a symbol of defiance and hope for liberation of his people from apartheid. This is how South Africa lives and breathes in Tanzania. How then does, statistically speaking, is South Africa breathing and living in Tanzania? For the first and longest period ever was a program for statistical training at ISTAC, sustained by Statistics South Africa. From 2001 up to 2017, Statistics South Africa sent interns to ISTAC, and not only to ISTAC, but also to the Institute of Statistics and Applied Economics at Makerere. Not only was South Africa in Tanzania, but to address the question of language barriers and connect with fellow Africans, in 2007, we branched into French-speaking Africa and enrolled our staff to go and train at École Nationale Supérieure de Statistics at the Economy in Abidjan, NCA. I was invited 2 years ago to commemorate 60 years of École Nationale Supérieure. Kofi Ngwezon, then director of NCA, and I concluded that for Africa to be in Africa, we need to break the language barrier between Anglo and Franco-Africa. By ensuring that Africans master the language barriers of colonialism, Africa can set itself free than by following the rarefied Anglo-only and Franco-only path. Economic diplomacy in world affairs will be etched in statistical competency and language proficiency. When Africans become articulate in statistical knowledge and leadership and transcend the languages of their colonizers, they'll be armed in reverse engineering colonialism and exposing for what it is, so that Africa can be free. H.G. Wells was not wrong when he opined that one day numeracy will be so important as is the ability to read and write. If we do not believe him, the ubiquitous world of technology requires that people are competent in the language of numbers. Africans cannot do politics when they are illiterate in numerals. The terrain of struggle expresses itself in numerals that defines the South Africa in Tanzania. Without appreciating this basic universal truth of numeracy and its significance in human development, the South Africa in Tanzania can only be a fleeting, ephemeral passion. Such will be an insult to Mwalimu as it would be to Madiba. It will fly badly in the face of Mbeki, who would be mockery to his drive for a content-rich Africa Day, whereby Mbeki insists that Africa's future will not be written in foreign capitals. It must be authored by Africans through our own intellect, innovation, and united resolve. It is about the far-sighted challenge that Solomon Mahlangu, as he paid by limb and life for the freedom we enjoy today, as he said, "My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. Tell my people that I love them." I would be remiss if I do not mention how disappointed we have become through the passage of time about our South Africa in Tanzania and in Africa more generally. More recently, Meg Edruth Mongela, a prominent Tanzanian politician and feminist who served as the first president of the Pan-African Parliament and a highly respected figure known for her commitment to women's leadership and Africa political integration, held no great words for us as South Africa. She argued that she had in her representative capacity very high hopes for South Africa, that it would take its leadership position as a last-born that has understood the pitfalls and failures of its predecessors and peers. To this end, this sorrowful moment affirms the disappointment that President Mandela in 1998 expressed when I handed him the results of the first post-apartheid census. Appreciating, of course, the portrait of a nation and the challenges the census projected against the strides made in the 2 years of democracy, Madiba carved out a sorrowful picture. Madiba, writing from prison in 1968 to Adelaide Tambo, advises the South Africa in Tanzania that significant progress is always possible if we ourselves plan in every detail and allow intervention of fate only on our own terms. Preparing a master plan and applying it are totally different things. And in this regard, data is very important. Receiving the census data, Madiba said, but we do at last have results with which we can work, the numbers that count for the nation. It will take time to absorb the full detail of this intricate picture of our complex society, but the broad outlines should act as the clarion call to really dedicate ourselves in every sector of the society to the historic mission of a generation charged with transformation of South African society in order to eradicate the poverty and imbalances that derived from our past. Indeed, a generation charged with transformation, South Africa's society we were. The question begged is, did we transform society? This brings to mind the question asked by the retired Justice Albie Sachs upon receiving recognition from President Mbeki in November 2024. This was on the Chancellor's Calabash Awards, of which Sachs was a recipient. Sachs argued that substantively we have won our freedom, and in that regard we have secured the country that we call South Africa. But have we secured the society? In short, have we transformed the society that we are? Have we achieved, or is there a semblance of us heading to the achievement of the 5 noble goals of the RDTB? To remind ourselves, the 5 goals were meeting basic needs, developing our human resources, building the economy, democratizing the state, society, and implementing RDP. The position of privilege that I have presents me with an analysis of the facts that will enable me to delve into what societal impact, if any, has come out of fulfillment of Madiba's assertion that we are a generation charged with transforming South Africa's society in order to eradicate the poverty and imbalances of the past. From the report of the Statistician General of 28 January this year, is painted a picture that is grim. Perhaps the quest for an answer by Sachs of whether we have transformed society is key. To this end, we need not look far, but to the historical censuses, especially the one of 2011, where comparative analysis of households' income by race was undertaken. But let us first discuss the charge Madiba, where he further characterized the challenges advising us on how South Africa should conduct itself in the context of massive expectations at the continental level and globally. He said, "We have brought about this miracle, and when we go out to the world, you need just to say, 'I am South African,' whether you are black or white, and the doors of the world will open to you." That is a reality. I want to understand that. The leaders of this country, when they go abroad, are fitted left and right. Therefore, do not disappoint those who hold you in such high regard. However, Gertrude Mwangela has been disappointed. The Income and Expenditure Survey report released on the 28th of January is very instructive on the failed transformation project that Madiba charged us with when he said it is in your hands now. The report says blacks, who are 80% of the population, have the lowest share of the highest income quintile. 73% of whites are on the upper quintile, relative to 40% of Indians and 20% of colors. Only 13% of blacks are in the upper quintile. The dilemma of this inequality is that the aggregate demand of blacks, which is in rand terms is huge, is spent in economies that concentration-wise are white and Indian. The report of the successive Statistician General reports reflect South Africa as a game of two halves, the pre-20 half and the post-20 half. As I conclude, Chair, I need to discuss about, on Friday, 28th of August this year, which is a few days ago, the professor of practice at the University of Johannesburg, Eldridge Jordan, launched his book at the Business School at the University of Johannesburg. The book titled The Silicon Empire versus Social Impact, which is the concern, Madam Chuo, that we have about civil registration, the David and Goliath battle. He invited me to be one of the discussants of the book. I certainly had to dig deep because his book invoked not only emotions, but provided a path that gives me hope that the resolutions we took in Gabon on the concerns of us Africans becoming breakfast, lunch, and supper of the Silicon Valley empires have a leader that resonates with those resolutions. I certainly throw my lot behind the David. I recall that on the 23rd of November 2011, I opened the 11th session of the African Symposium for Statistical Development in Gabon. And my address, which captured the scientific discoveries that left the world amazed by the history of Gabon, can only strengthen the rediscovery of Africa. As we train and create statisticians, remember Amilcar Cabral when he said, "Always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's head. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children." As we celebrate 60 years of ISTAC, in the next 60, we have to bring up intellectuals that are purpose-driven, that are ethical, that are African and Ubuntu-inspired. Long live ISTAC, long live. The story of ISTAC is one about the South Africa in Tanzania. I thank you.
Well, well, well. If you were not fired by that presentation, I will be surprised. I have three comments, and they're about how ESTEC now should begin to think when it is preparing for its forward-looking programs. Professor has posed that indirectly three questions, if you listen to him very carefully. The first question is, philosophically speaking, where are your official statistics grounded? Where is your ground? Is it just a purely technical economic development? No. You should think outside the box. The second question, I think, is the spirit of Pan-Africanism has come out very well. He has explained the evolution from Mwalimu Nyerere through Mandela, through other leaders, And the fact that ESTEC brings in students from a number of African countries, I think it's a very good ground for developing the Pan-Africanist spirit in terms of grounding official statistics in the context of the needs of development of Africa. Therefore, ESTEC should begin to look at that, especially those who are working for their master's degree and the PhD degrees. Where is your thinking, your statistical thinking grounded? The third and the last question, I think, is the whole idea of being at the service of the people, being at the service of their people in their struggles. And therefore, the numbers that we give, the counting that we do, the calculations that we make should be appropriate to the developmental needs of the people where development is. Really, Prof, you have put us into the second phase of liberation, that is official statistics for Africa's economic liberation. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you. A round of applause for him. We now move on to the last presentation. Dr. Amina Msengwa, karibu sana.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I think I'm taking it from the moderator, where he ends his deliberations from the previous speaker. So now let me start by thanking Dr. Katunzi very much and the ESTC management for this kind of invitation. And it helped me a lot to think about my transition against the statistical development. So I'm here today to give you a little bit of a story on how I grew up in this career, and then we can link it on how now we can navigate this landscape. For sure, the priorities and the challenges has been spelled out since morning. The keynote speaker also mentioned about the challenges and the development which we needed to look at it through the priorities we have. So, as I was mentioned there, my name is Amina Msengwa, yes, purely a biostatistician and epidemiologist by training. So I have been working in academia, research and public service for more than 20 years. And today, I serve as statistician general. So the question comes here, where did it all start? So my story today began those kind of 20 years back when I was very young in terms of age, but young in the statistical community, young statistician, young analyst in Tanzania, where I was trying to think and wanted to have to address the issues of how do we transform data into knowledge that can save lives. So that was my intention. And we are not here to discuss much on the statistics, but to celebrate 60 years of incredible work of East Africa Statistical Training Center. So to me, this marks over 20 years of working together as part of the data community that has grown stronger, more innovative, and more impactful for the lives of our people. And I should like to say here a little bit that I have been working with the East Africa Statistical Training Center for quite some time. After joining the University of Dar es Salaam right away, I was supporting on a part-time basis, teaching the students at ESTEC, and later on, I was given an opportunity to be an external examiner. So I went through that, and later on, I was appointed as a member of the Ministerial Advisory Board. So during that time, that means you can see that my statistics, but my interest in the nurturing part, I was having some students for masters and PhDs, and I always feel proud of them. So now let me come back to my real story, where we can see the statistical development and the transformation across. So several days ago, I was trying to reflect on how did I decided to take the biostatistics and epidemiology while I was growing in the field. So I remember those days, hearing that a child in a neighborhood died with malaria, or hearing my mother saying, he died or she died with high fever and malaria. So I used to feel very sad and afraid as a human being, as well as a woman. As I grow up, I asked myself, what will happen when I become pregnant? Then my reflection on the maternal mortality, but later on about my child, the child mortality part. So this experience shaped me as a biostatistician and epidemiology studies, and triggered my interest in learning about the distribution of disease. So stressing the importance of understanding how to quantify this information and to explore more on how we can use data to save lives. So this question will guide my talk as we celebrate ESTC 60th anniversary and navigate towards rapidly changing data landscape. This is framed to understand how our statistical system responded to national priorities. As we have now, we heard about our 3 gurus in the national statistical systems, but now we want to see it. How can we translate into the having to save lives of our people, our community? So let me take you back to the early 2000s, those time when I was really young. So Tanzania, like many other countries in Africa, faced a critical data gap. So when we talk about the data gap, then we have to think about, yes, the data gap in 2000s, is it the same as today's when we are talking here? So we had surveys and reports, but we lacked the tools to translate them into actionable insights. So I can give you one example that when monitoring child health, policymakers could not easily see where children were dying or how diseases such as malaria were contributing to mortality. And that was the point where I started to focus and say, now I wanted to address this issue. So together in a collaborative way, we had a project. We call it Mapping Child Mortality in Tanzania. But the main interest here is to see how we can fill the gap, but also inform, make it more visual to our policymakers. So how did we do it? So we brought together 3 different types of data. Remember that those days, we had the demographic and health surveys, of which we know, most of us, that the child mortality measurements, we can obtain it there directly. But when it comes to malaria, then we had to find out how can we get the malaria data based on the places where the DHS data were collected. So it was lucky that Ifakara Health Institute had a project called Malaria Mapping in Africa, and they were able to extract the data from small surveys all over the country. The project was bigger across Africa, but for my side, I just took for Tanzania. So the data were cleaned, geo-referenced, and modeled separately from the DHS and the mortality data. But if you remember that we know malaria is always shaped by environment and climate, then how can you get the environment and the climate data for each point of those other surveys published? The researchers, they have done their own work. So we had to go to the remote sensing data. So remember that by that time, how do we get those remote sensing data? And how do we process with the resources in Tanzania and in other African countries? Then, in order to capture that relationship between environment and malaria, then we started to model that. Purely a statistics model, but later on we had the visual kind of, the spatial kind of setup. But remember, the interest was to relate malaria and the mortality. So after that, then we had to reprocess again to make it the malaria map, the data are linked with the DHS data. So the kind of evolution we went through, and that is the way how we can look at it as the future process. So merging these three streams into a geostatistical framework. And I can just mention one example of the methods which we were using, the kriging, because basically by that time, without kriging, you can't do the prediction moving from one data set to the other one. So we created a detailed map that revealed for the first time how childhood mortality and malaria overlapped geographically in Tanzania. That was the first map. So let me say that the process was not easy, as you may do it now. You have all those kind of tools, the AIs, the machine, the supercomputers, and other things. So computing resources in Tanzania were limited. We did not have powerful computers. Our knowledge of softwares to conduct such analysis was limited. Our servers were not sufficient to store large data and model output, and we didn't have access to the cloud system that are available today. So with those kind of challenges, but we were able to do that. So if you compare us with our international partners, we were working with the fraction of the capacity, but we had something different. We were very proud of the theoretical knowledge, of the analytical methods, local knowledge of the problem we had, and the determination and the critical thinking. So actually this story project, for me, it was a critical time, but it's a pioneering and highly collaborative with our partners, North-South collaborations. And in that sense, it brought together expertise from 4 key institutions. As I said, University of Dar es Salaam, where I was working and registered by that time, Ifakara Health Institute, which played a central role in extracting and georeferencing malaria data through the Mapping Malaria Risk in Africa project. So these are the local ones. And we knew what we were facing by that time. So, but in addition to that, as you understand that we had the North-South collaborations, then we had Umeå University in Sweden through a CEDA-sponsored partnership. And under this North-South collaboration, the key issue there, or the vital role in that project, was to strengthen technical capacity. My colleague here, they were talking about the capacity building and the advancing life-saving initiative in Tanzania. As well as we had the University of Basel under the Spatial Statistical Group, where I was working with in Switzerland. And in this institution, that means I was getting the advanced methodological expertise and innovations. We have the limited, but through the collaboration, then we can find ourselves that we are in the other kind of area. So working across these institutions was not always easy. And by that time, I was young, little, but I was working with the PIs, with the bigger grants and other things. So the main issue here then, it was like, what brought us together by that time? So what united us was the theory of statistics, common language of probability and inference, epidemiological knowledge, but most importantly, a common mission of using our expertise to innovate models. So always you have to do that. And in that sense, we were able to save life of our children, and I believe that it was also expanded to many other areas. So through this process, I not only grew technically, but I also learned about adaptability, resilience, and the importance of collaboration. This actually became a milestone in my career development, but now we will see it. So why does this story matter today and to the ESTC? Because the challenges we face now are both similar and different. And I was trying to start by saying that we were facing the data gap. Is it in the same kind of structure we were facing those days? So remember now, the data are coming through many streams. So in 2000s, the challenge was data scarcity, but today the challenge is data abundance. Growing exponentially. So the national statistical systems are no longer the main data producers with very few researchers. But we have the National Statistical Office, we have researchers, but we have a lot of citizen-generated data. We may even sit here and see that the cameras there, they can detect how many are we, because it can say this is Amina, so this is Dr. Albina, even if I get out and come in several times. So we have to think about what will be our future. So this is the essence of navigating today's data landscape. Currently, we are now no option. We just need to get into that. Working on the big data analytics that process massive volumes in real time. Artificial intelligence is not an option. Geospatial technologies that connect data to place, it is now there. And if you remember that by that time we were struggling to link with the statistical modeling approach from DHUAC to MIS and all other things. But let me tell you, the spatial statistical group in Basel, that was the one which helped us to make sure that we had the MIS. Those time, we were just looking around for the spatial data from different surveys, different researchers to get the malaria data. But then the malaria indicator survey comes in, but with the geospatial features. And then automatically then we feel like we have to do it, DHS and the malaria indicator survey. So that is the way we can say that the transitions, we are seeing it, and the life is moving with this kind of technologies. So the opportunities are there, but there are some challenges. Resource constraints already been mentioned. Skills gap, especially in AI, data science, and advanced statistics and modeling. And my gurus here, they have said balancing political and technical interests. For us, we are professionals, and we really needed to comply to that. So currently, I serve as a statistician general, a position I have held for 6 months. Thank you, Dr. Chuo, and you did incredible work to Tanzania and the National Bureau of Statistics. But as you understand, 6 months is, I'm still a little younger. I'm still learning, adapting to this role. But I believe on my broader experience and with the support of all other members under the statistical community, data statistical community, then it will be easier for me to navigate to that post. But let me say a little bit on how we can navigate this, and we must invest in people, institutions, and infrastructure. And for universities and training institutions like the East Africa Statistical Training Centre, it means the pivotal role is equipping the new generation of statisticians on relevant skills, such as advanced statistics, coding, machine learning, and geospatial statistics, which are critical for their future. But from my side, as a National Bureau of Statistics, the modernization, it has already been said. We don't have any other options. We must get into the modernization and to have a full swing with the big data analytics, real-time indicators, and geospatial information to complement the traditional census and surveys. This may involve secure, sustainable financing model, in particular in the era where there is a dramatic change in the donor support landscape. For government and policymakers, it means ensuring that the data revolution translates into better decision, whether in health, education, agriculture, or climate resilience. We should showcase where things work and be transparent, where they didn't work, and provide opportunities for new innovations to be tested to catch up with this fast-moving world. Colleague, let me take you again back a little bit from the story I have shared. So that from what I call it, the first map of child mortality in Tanzania, it is evident that childhood mortality has shown a remarkable decline over the past 2 decades. It reflects the impact of targeted interventions and sustained government commitment based on the findings which we had. If you take it from here in Tanzania, in the early 2000s, the under 5 mortality rate stood at 147 deaths per 1,000 live birth. By 2022, we had 43 deaths per 1,000 live births. This representing a reduction of more than 2/3. This tremendous achievement has saved hundreds of thousands of young lives and earned Tanzania international recognition for delivering high-impact, evidence-based intervention. It's a long story, but at least now I feel like, oh, I participated and contributed to this. So in this regard, special congratulations go to the 6th government under the leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, whose dedication to advancing health and social services continues to position Tanzania as a model in child survival and public health transformation. To me, this carries a simple message that data is powerful when we use it wisely, inclusively, and in service of people's life. So navigating today's data landscape is not just about tools and technologies. It is about being ready and prepared to adapt, to innovate, and to collaborate. Without this, no technologies, however advanced, can sustain its impact. That is how we will ensure that the data revolution drives fundamental transformation in Tanzania, across Africa, and globally. Wishing you all a very happy 60th anniversary of achievement. Hongereni sana ESTC management. Nashukuru kwa kunisikiliza. Asanteni sana.
Well, what can we say about her presentation? If you listen to it very carefully, Dr. Amina Msengwa's presentation was clearly the struggle she was having in her quest to make official statistics, not just be numbers to be calculated, to be analyzed, but at the end of the day, to make sense in terms of what I would call integral human development. So in other words, it is a challenge once again to ESTEC when they admit students to come to study official statistics, to train them. Why do you want to study official statistics? Really? Why do you want to do it? What is driving you in terms of caring for the people, in terms of pushing beyond the frontier of knowledge so that we know how to deal with all these artificial this, artificial that. We even come to even artificial intelligence. Now, who knows which is really artificial? Is it the computer or is it my brain? Thank you very much. I have been asked to make an overall conclusion, and instead of having a plenary discussion, as you know very well that we are short run of time. But I have come out with the following as a way of giving an overall impression or conclusion to the four presentation. There are four themes in one. The overall themes, we had management, leadership, capacity, and practices, practices, being professional. These are the four themes, the context of developing, distributing, using official statistics. However, the official statistics within these four contexts has its own stories in terms of processes, and the two types of processes which have come out in the presentation is the evolution of official statistics both in Tanzania and in Africa, but also the navigation. The last one, Dr. Amina was trying to share how she navigated her way towards her quest. And then the second was the constraints. There are a lot of constraints, but the major ones which have come out in the presentation are, of course, challenges. There are still challenges. They constrain the borders within which we can develop official statistics for the purpose of results-based management of development, but also, of course, priorities. Are we clear about our priorities? What do we really want to be the first, the second, and the third one? So with that sort of synthesis of the four presentations, may I finish by suggesting to ESTEC to make sure that these four presentations are collected and published together under proceedings of the 60th anniversary of East African Statistical Training Center 2025, and published to be disseminated all over Africa, if not even beyond Africa. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to moderate the presentation, although we do not have enough time to interact, but the chance will come. East Africa, ESTEC is still there. Asanteni sana.
And my sincere gratitude to all the presenters and the message that we have got. I said earlier in the morning, we will not leave the room as the way we came here. At least we have a full picture of what the ESTEC is all about, but the very amazing journey that they have had from the year 1965 up to the today. Naomba tusimame, tujinyoshe kidogo, tujinyoshe kidogo, take your time and stretch yourself up, sije tukazimia hapa, Asante sana. Msalimie na jirani yako hapo, inawezekana hata mjapiga story toka mmefika. Mwambie hongera kwa kuwepo mpaka saizi na pole kwa uchovu. Lakini raha ya lunch ule ukiwa na njaa, au sio? Sasa tutafaidi lunch vizuri sana kwa hali tulionayo. Asanteni sana. Naomba basi tuketi niwape utaratibu wa chakula. I'll give you some Asante sana. Tupo na chakula kipo tayari, muda mrefu tu walikuwa natusubiri sisi tuwe tayari tuende tukapata chakula, and we have amazing lunch. Kwa hiyo bwana uhakika you're going to have delicious food. Kiongozi, naomba bidada karibu hapa uongoze kwanza hii meza kuu, tuende nao kwenda kupata chakula. Kwa hiyo atawaongoza, mdogo wangu atawaongoza tuende tukapata chakula kwa pamoja. Nashukuru sana kwa kazi nzuri. May the high table please join together and you'll be led where exactly you'll be taking your lunch. Thank you very much.